Meet the Facebook ad thief, an AI agent that steals your competitors' best performing ads and makes them yours. It scrapes the Facebook ad library, saves the winners, and rebuilds them with your brand front and center using Google's Nano Banana. I'll show you the demo first, then walk you through the entire build node by node. All right, let's jump in. All right, let's jump into the demo for the Facebook ad thief. So we're going to pretend that we are a competitor to Athletic Greens, who's famous for their AG1 product, and we have a competitor called Thrive Mix. We want market share, we want to grow our business, so the Facebook ad thief is going to help us do that. We're going to start here with execute workflow, and the inputs are the Facebook ad library URL for the competitor. So here we've pulled it up. Facebook ad library, if you're not familiar, will display the ads that a company is currently running. So we're going to snag that URL. We're going to paste it in. And we're also going to upload our own brand image. So here we're uploading our Thrive Mix product and brand, and that's going to kick off the workflow. So first and foremost, we're calling in to Appify, and Appify is going to scrape all of the live ads for AG1. It's going to pull those ads into a source file in Google Drive, as you can see here. So it's scraping the current ads that AG1 is running. It's pulling them in our own local Google Drive. And then it's going to encode those files in a way that we can push off to the Gemini API here and use Nano Banana with. And here is a prompting section where we're essentially telling Nano Banana, hey, we're a competitor, Thrive Mix. We want to clone this ad, but with our branding and our products. Give us back a great advertising image similar to this one. And then the output you can see is here. Nano Banana has cloned the top performing ads from our competitor AG1 or Athletic Greens, and it's taken them and put Thrive Mix within these ads. Now, it's not always perfect, but you do get some great output. So here you can see Thrive Mix, a simple routine that you can feel awesome. We got just some UGC holding our product. We've got the cost of having a bad gut, Thrive Mix, and a whole bunch more. Some not as good. As you can see, it's not always perfect, but it's really amazing for getting the ideas turning and getting quick ad output that brands are currently running on the Facebook ad network. So pretty powerful, pretty sweet to see. And that's how the Facebook ad thief agent works at a high level. If you want to download this full agent yourself and clone it in your n8n instance, you can grab this exact template for free in our AI Automation Mastery School community. We have thousands of people in this community who are learning from each other best practices of building automations and AI agents. And you'll just go to the YouTube AI tutorials, and we'll have this full JSON template for you to download and clone completely for free for yourself. So join our school community. And now we're going to jump into the node by node build of this exact workflow with Lucas. So let's jump in.
I want to give you guys a brief overview of the system we're going to be building today before going node by node. The first thing we have to set up here is going to be our input trigger into this whole system. This is going to take in a URL from the Facebook ads library, as well as an upload of our product image. And so we have this link prepared here from Facebook ads that is going to be AG1 by Athletic Greens that has all of their ads. And we have this product image for Thrive Mix, which is going to be our product. Both of those get inputted here inside this form trigger that's going to kick off our whole automation. After that's done, we're then going to move on to the next key component, which is going to be using Appify to go ahead and scrape every single ad found underneath this URL from the Facebook ads library. Appify is the scraping platform that makes it really easy to plug and play a bunch of different scrapers, and it makes it very simple to work quickly on an automation just like this. So we're going to scrape those ads, split out that data, and then move on to the final part, which is going to be looping over each of those competitor ads we were able to scrape. And so that's going to be everything we see here on this highlighted section. We're going to run through these ads one by one. The two key things I want to call out here are going to be these two HTTP requests that we're making to Google Gemini's API. The first one is going to be an image analysis request where we upload both our product image and one of the Facebook ad library images, we're going to have the AI analyze that and come back to us with a prompt that details how to best insert our product into the competitor ad. Once we have that prompt in hand, we're going to pass that off to the next portion, which is going to go forward and actually generate that final ad for us using the Nano Banana image model. That's going to run through, we're going to check our results, and finally upload each of those images into Google Drive. That's going to repeat for every single image we found here from the Facebook ad library. And so by the end of this, just like what we covered in the demo, we're going to have this full repository of all of our products inserted into the competitor ads. Let's now come over here to n8n and go through this automation node by node so you can gain a really strong understanding how I'm passing data through this entire system and how you can repurpose a template just like this for your own business or for your client's business. The first thing we have set up here, like I covered before, is going to be our form trigger that kicks everything off. In this form trigger, we have our text element that is going to be our input for the Facebook ad library URL. And then we're going to have a file element that is going to contain an upload box for us to go ahead and insert our Thrive Mix product here that we want to get transposed onto all of our competitor ads. That covers it for the trigger setup. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this step here, and so we can see what data looks like coming through. So we'll get those both uploaded, submit it, and we're going to get our data back here. So moving on to this next node, the first thing we have to do is go ahead and take the raw bytes from this file we just uploaded of our Thrive Mix healthy powder and go ahead and convert this into a base 64 string. The reason we do this is going to be because of these two nodes we see here down below that are working with Google Gemini's API. Instead of passing off a file and the raw bytes of the file, they require us to pass in a base 64 string of the file in order to get Gemini and Nano Banana to actually understand the image we're trying to work with. And this is a necessary step for us to go ahead and input this image on the left-hand side and get this long string on the right-hand side. And so if you're setting this up for the first time, you can search for file here under a node to add in, and you're going to be able to use this extract from file node to convert your file to a base 64 string. Moving on to the next section here is going to be how we interact with Appify to go ahead and scrape every single ad from the Facebook ad library URL that we provided as input. So I'm going to go ahead and click on execute step here, and that is going to get this up and running so we can see what the real data looks like. I'm using one of the community nodes actually packaged into one of the latest versions of n8n. And so if you have that enabled on your instance, you can simply search for Appify and we can see all these different actions that appear here on what we can do with it. We're going to be using this action called run actor and get dataset that is going to allow us to trigger an actor and get back all the data we need from our Facebook ad library in one node. In my opinion, that is the most simple way to work with and consume Appify actors, and what I suggest that you do. Getting up and running with Appify and using their community node is also very easy. So if we pull up our node and go to our connection up top here, we can create a new credential. And I used the OAuth2 connection here that allows me to click this button and simply go ahead and log in to my Appify account that I've already set up. There's no need to deal with API keys, creating secrets, or anything else. Very easy to get up and running for the first time here. Going down the list, there's a couple of other settings we have to configure on this node. Under resource, we want to work with an actor, which in terms of Appify language, this just means it's one of the programs or submodules on the Appify platform that we want to interact with. In this case, I'm using this Facebook ad library scraper that allows us to scrape 1,000 ads for 75 cents. And we can see that I've done, some test runs here and got some good data back. But this is what I would personally recommend for Facebook ad library scraping. But there's other actors on the Appify store here to the left-hand side if you have a slightly different use case from what I'm demonstrating here. So actor is what we want to select here for resource. Operation is going to be run an actor and get data set, which basically means it's going to call into the Appify API. It's going to trigger this actor to go ahead and scrape information from the provided input that we're going to give to it. And finally, it's going to return that data back to us, all in the scope of a single HTTP request. And so there's no polling we have to do, no complex error handling. It's just going to give us the data back. Very easy to use. Next, under actor source, I'm just going to go ahead and use Appify store actors because I know that's one that I've already got up and running with. And then when selecting actors, I'm going to use from list and then just go ahead and find that actor I was using from before. And so right now there's nothing appearing, but if we come back to Appify and copy this value at the top here, that is going to be the actor ID. So if we come back here, open this up, we can simply paste in that actor ID, and we're going to be able to select the actor that we were looking at from before on the Appify dashboard. That's how you connect the actor you want to use to this Appify node inside of n8n. The next thing we have to do here is build out an expression for the input JSON we want to provide to use this actor. This is going to allow us to tell Appify what is the specific page from the Facebook ad library we want to go out and scrape. And so for this, of course, we're using this URL that we're passing in from the form trigger. And in order to build this request, you don't even need to know what everything is happening here. What I like to do when building these requests is I go over to the Appify console, I select manual here under the input tab, and then I just fill out this form here and look at the tooltips to see what I need to actually input. So in this case, URLs, this is going to be a list of Facebook ads, search URLs, or page URLs to scrape ads from. And so we'll paste that in. It looks like they have this limit here too, so costs don't get out of control. And we can batch this to be in smaller requests. And so 20 is good to me. And everything else looks good here. And so what I do is I fill this out under manual. I then click on JSON, and that is going to give me this JSON object I can just copy and paste here into n8n that is going to contain the structure we need to follow when working with this Appify actor. The only thing we need to switch out here is going to be any dynamic element, such as the URL that we want to pass in from our form trigger. So we'll go ahead and delete this. So we just have our double quotes here to make this valid JSON. We'll go to our form trigger here, and we should just be able to drag in this Facebook ad library URL that we have specified from before. And so on the right side here, we can see that this URL is getting dynamically filled out with the search URL that we built out from before. And so that matches exactly what we're expecting. That looks like everything is set up here. The last thing I want to cover is going to be the output we get back in JSON from Appify. And so when scrolling through this, we can see we have a lot of properties coming back in. And what I'm looking for here is going to be some sort of URL for the image that is appearing on each of these Facebook ads. So when scrolling down through this, I did notice this original image URL and the resized image URL. And I decided to go with grabbing this original image URL because that is going to be the high resolution image that was, originally uploaded into the Facebook ad platform. A little bit of exploration you have to do when analyzing the output of these Appify actors, but usually scraping systems like this give you as much context as possible. And so if something exists on the ad, it's more than likely going to appear here in the result of your Appify scrape operation. That covers it here for the initial setup of our product and our Facebook ad library URL, and then going ahead and using Appify to scrape all of that data back for us to consume. Up next, we need to loop over all of our competitor ads that were returned to us from Appify and go through this prompting process to build out our final ad with our product, Thrive Mix, included on the ad itself. What we're going to do here is use this batch operation, or if you search for loop, we can see that we loop over items split into batches. And so what this allows us to do is take the output from this node that has 30 different items and process these one by one in a loop. We'll start this, branch out of this loop path at the bottom, and everything here, including this top one, is going to get run one by one over all 30 of those ads we scraped from Appify. So we're going to download the image, split off here, merge that result together, and then run through each of the steps here at the bottom for every single competitor ad. Let's now go through everything that's happening here inside this inner loop that's going to process these ad images one by one. The first thing we do here after we get one item loaded into the loop is going to be downloading the image from the Facebook ad library. If you remember from before, when we were scraping our ads using Appify, we had those couple of image URLs that we needed to extract, and that's where we're going to use them. So we're going to make a simple HTTP GET request to go ahead and download that image for us to use later. And so this is the source image from our competitor, AG1, that we're going to try and replicate and insert our product into. Because this is public, there's no authentication needed, and we're all set there to proceed forward. After that's done, we're then going to fork off here and do 2 steps kind of in parallel. The first one is going to be using the Google Drive node to go ahead and upload our source image here into a source folder in Google Drive. And so we can see we have our source ads folder here. That does contain a full repository of images for us to, later reference or make any manual edits to if we want to. It's just good to have this data at our hands for any future changes we may want to dive into. After that's done, we're then going to go ahead and convert this source competitor ad image also into a base 64 string. This is that exact same file node that we were working with from before, where we extract binary data to JSON. And we're going to go ahead and pass in our data field here on the right side. That is our competitor image. And we're just going to go ahead and output that to a destination data field, which again is going to be a string encoded in base 64 that contains all of the data for our image. We're going to use that later down here, and that's just the format that Gemini and Nano Banana needs. After that's done, we're going to use this merge node just to simply append the results of both of these two into a list, just so our automation can continue here sequentially and we don't get any weird blocking behavior. And so because we merge this together, it's going to give us 2 different output items. We only want to execute this pipeline once per competitor image. We're going to use this aggregate node to bundle everything together. The next step we do here is going to be the start of working with the Gemini APIs and the Nano Banana image editor. One thing that's important here to the design of this is around the 2 separate API calls we're making. We're not simply using one call into Nano Banana, but we're going to do one call into Google Gemini, get the result of that, and then pass that into Nano Banana. The reason I approached it this way was really due to the quality of output I was getting. The first attempt I made at this, I was really only trying to use a single prompt here, passed off to Nano Banana to generate our final ad. And what I found was that it was really tough to write a generic prompt that could handle every single edge case we may expect to see across a bunch of different ads. When scrolling through here, we can see we have ads like this, where there's some simple text appearing along with a person in the background. We can see some of these other ads are featuring the AG1 product packaging, and some of the more complex ones have multiple packaging options of the AG1 product. And so writing a mega prompt to really handle all these scenarios was not working well for me when consuming the Nano Banana API. And so what I decided to do was make use of this concept called meta prompting, where we ask AI to go ahead and write a prompt for us. And that is going to be what happens here inside this very first call into Google Gemini. And so in this set field node, I write out a simple prompt where I am going to ask Gemini to analyze the images I provide and write a prompt for me. It's going to analyze those images and figure out the best way to approach editing images so our product and its packaging can be featured in the source ad from AG1, which is our competitor. And so this was a pretty loosely constructed prompt, not too detailed, and really just used a dictation tool to speak out loud what my thoughts were. This is the prompt that gets passed into this first request here off to Gemini 2.5 Pro, which we can see here in this request. And so this is, under Google APIs URL, models, and we're using Gemini 2.5 Pro. Really, just to reiterate this is not going to be the API call that generates our image. The output of this is going to be this text field we get that is going to be another prompt that's going to later get executed. So if I pull this up into JSON, we can see that the output of this, it's giving us a much more detailed prompt catered to our product image and the current image we're analyzing for our competitor's ad. If we're running this over 30 different items here, there's actually going to be 30 separate prompts that get generated that eventually get passed off to the Nano Banana image editor API. It's a bit more complexity this way, but I found when structuring your system this way that uses meta prompting, especially with complex edits where we're trying to clone an ad, the output is going to look a lot better. Before I did this with the first approach, I was finding that there would be artifacts left in my output here where some of the old branding, like this case where, partial AG was appearing, some of that was not getting handled by the image generator. And then on the future ones, using this metadata approach, there's this complex case where there were 3 different packaging labels appearing here promoting AG1. And now the editor with this more advanced prompt was able to swap in our product for each of those. And so just looking at this request a little bit more, we're making a post request into Google Gemini's API from that URL we set up before. We're using a generic credential type that we've set up before, where we've simply passed in our Google Gemini API key. I've covered this in previous videos, and so make sure to click up above if you need help setting that up for the first time. Scrolling down is going to be where we set up our JSON body for the request we want to pass in to the Gemini API. And so we can see here, this is the content, this is the structure that Gemini requires us to send in requests. And we can see there's 3 separate parts to this request. Text is going to be the text prompt we're passing in. And so that's what we wrote out before in our set field node. And then for these last 2, we're going to be passing in the 2 images that need to get analyzed, which are the base 64 encoded images from before. And so we have our product image that we uploaded from before encoded as a base 64 string. So it's just this massive block of jumbled characters that is containing the image data from before. And then down below, we have the current competitor ad image also encoded as a base 64 string that is going to get sent off to the Gemini API to be analyzed, evaluated, and get referenced for the prompt we're trying to generate. And so that's how you can pass in multiple images in one request, along with your text prompt with Gemini's API. So we send that off, we get our result back, which is that prompt detailed here. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take the output of this prompt and pass that into the Nano Banana API. And so when setting up this request, this is going to be very similar to what we did before, still at this googleapis.com domain. But instead of using Gemini 2.5 Pro, we are going to switch this last part here to use Gemini 2.5 Flash Image Preview, generate content. That is going to tell Google we want to make use of the Nano Banana image editor model, and we want to generate an image. So under authentication, we're going to be setting up our credential exactly the same way we did before because it's still being sent off to the same API, but we're just using a different model. And then when we scroll down to the bottom here where we construct our JSON body request, we're going to change things up just a little bit differently. The first thing we do here is going to be setting, instead of the prompt we manually wrote out, we're going to be looking at the output of that previous Gemini 2.5 Pro API request and dynamically inserting that entire prompt here. And so just to reiterate this is highly customized for the source input image, which is our AG1 competitor ad, as well as our product ad for ThriveMix. And so this is highly tailored in order to insert ThriveMix into the source ad we're currently trying to clone. And so it's going to reference specific details on what needs to get swapped out, any lighting changes, any packaging instructions, really to give us the best clone of the ad as possible. In addition to that, we're going to make use of 2 separate inline data parts that are getting sent off to the request too. That is, of course, going to be our reference product image as a base 64 string, and the current image of our competitor AG1 ad that we're looking at right now. And so as we loop through here again, image by image for each of those competitor images, this is going to get swapped out with a different prompt and a different competitor ad image as we process those. So that's the request. And as this runs, we are going to go ahead and get back a response here. If I click show data, it's going to give us back inline data for the final resulting image as a base 64 encoded string. And so if I proceed here, we're going to do a simple check to see if this request is prohibited. I added this in because Google Gemini and Nano Banana's API have been pretty stingy with some of the requests that I've been testing recently. And you are going to occasionally hit this prohibited content error really without much rhyme or reason. And so in order to prevent your whole workflow from blowing up, I just skip over this and move on to the next ad in the loop to process. So right now, this may change in the future, but I added this in just to make the system more reliable. Assuming we don't get this prohibited error, we're able to move forward and grab the result of this Nano Banana image generation. And so if I pull this up, we have this simple JavaScript expression here that is going to go ahead and look at this candidates, content, parts, and grab the first part that mentions inline data from the resulting Nano Banana API call, and go ahead and grab that string that contains all of that base 64 encoded data. If this is set up correctly, you should see a massive string that looks just like this. The reason we need this filter is because the Nano Banana API is occasionally returning text back with the image response, and so we can't necessarily always grab just the first part of this. What I do is I filter out the result here and make sure I'm looking at the inline data response instead of accidentally reaching out and grabbing this text, because we need our resulting image. So after we have our result set here, the final node we need to run is going to be another file node that allows us to go from a base 64 string to a real file. And so this is going to be the convert to file node, like what we have here if we search for file. And if I pull this up, we are going to be using the operation move base 64 string to file. And so we have our result, which is the base 64 string here as our input, image result. And we're going to go ahead and put our resulting file into this data field on the right-hand side here as our output. And so if we click on view, we're going to see our file able to be rendered inside n8n with our Thrive Mix product that has been replaced inside our competitor's AG1 ad. So this looks pretty good. It was actually able to handle a case where there were multiple packaging items set up on the source ad and put Thrive Mix in the middle here, which is pretty cool to see. The final thing that happens inside this loop for every single competitor ad image that is running through is going to be this upload to Google Drive node. And so we have our Google Drive folder connected. We're going to use this file resource upload operation, and we're going to take this data field here from the left-hand side and put it here as the file to be uploaded. We're going to give it a name, which is going to be cloned ad number, and then just use run index +1 to go ahead and give this a unique number as we loop through every single competitor ad. And we're going to specify the folder we want this to get inserted into. And so as this is running one by one for all of our images, we're going to go ahead and fill out this output ad folder with all of our resulting images. So we have this nice repository for everything to get saved together. If you need the folder ID, if you're setting this up the first time, you can just look at the URL up top, go ahead and copy the final part of the URL. And so everything you see after /folders/, and then you're going to be able to paste that here into the parent folder by ID, and that's going to be the destination where everything gets saved to. And so that covers it here for the Facebook Ad Thief system. It should give you a good foundation on how to build a system like this and start cloning your competitors' ads.
All right, before you go, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Seriously, do it, because we're going to be breaking down all of the AI automations that we use to run all of our businesses. They're super helpful, and we're going to break down exactly how we do them on this YouTube channel. So make sure to like and then subscribe, and then you'll get notified when we publish new workflows that can make your businesses run 20 times more efficiently, just like we're seeing here at the recap and the other businesses that we're running. The other item is join our school community for free. The link's in the description. You'll be able to get this template, this automation that we just ran through in this video, completely for free. You can go to school and navigate to the video that you want, and then you can download the JSON output for the n8n automation. With that, you can upload it into your n8n, clone it, and then tune it for your business and your use cases. So like and subscribe, join our free community to get this automation for yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.